Welcome everyone. In today's session, we're going to see the cash book. So very common. Every time you will see this question in the exam, and of course, the first thing you have to know what is cash book. The cash book is the book where we record all the payment we have received from the customer or we paid to our supplier. Now, obviously, when we talk about the cash book, that means something is already done. Cash book doesn't mean something is pending. So cash book debit side means you already received the money. Cash book credit side means you already paid the money to the supplier. So if something is pending, like I going to pay or I'm going to receive, it's never come to the cash book. So cash book means something is already done. So in this question, we can see uh, it says goods sold today to two customer as below. So they are saying we are selling the goods today. Some of the information is a very important on the cash book. If the quotient mentioned today, that means this is a cash transaction. This is a cash transaction. That means we never paid VAT before for this transaction. And this is a cash transaction, then we have to split the VAT. That means we received these two transaction from these two customer from customer X and Y, and the VAT has to be separated. Now remember, if the question said this transaction from the previous month rather than saying today, if they said is from the June and today's date is August, that means you understand this transaction is not today's. This transaction happened before in June, and today we are receiving the money. That means this is a credit transaction. And if there is a credit transaction, we're not going to split the VAT here. The reason is when we make the credit sale to the customer, we already split the VAT and give it to HMRC. Now, when the customer pay me after a few months, I'm not going to pay the VAT again. That's the reason I'm not going to split the VAT. So it's very important to understand like why on the cash transaction we split the VAT and the credit transaction we are not. The reason is for the cash transaction we never paid VAT to HMRC, but on the other hand for the credit transaction we already paid the VAT before because this transaction never happened today, it happened before. So obviously that's the reason we don't have to pay the VAT again, otherwise it will be double. Now the question will give you the hints. If the question said today, that means it's a current. So it's today's transaction, cash transaction. We never paid the VAT. We have to pay the VAT. If the question said this transaction happened in June, but today's date is August, that means this has happened before. We don't have to do the VAT. That's the trade receivables. Now let's have a look. We have a two customer, X limited and Y limited. And we can see amount is 100 plus VAT, and that one is 100 including VAT. Now, all of us you already know if the weight is inside, including, that means we have to divide by 6 to get the VAT. So 100 divided 6, let's say it is 16. That's my VAT. This one says plus VAT. So 100 times 20% I have to add. Plus means I have to add 20%. So that will be 20 will be VAT, 20%. VAT is 20% fixed. Even the question doesn't say anything. You always have to remember the VAT is fixed 20%. On the comment section, we can see they said £50 paid by check. That means £50 come to the bank and rest in cash. That means if I added £20 with the 100, so that will be 120, isn't it? So 120 is the total, and out of 120, £50 came to the bank. And that means another 70 we received in the form of cash. So 100 plus VAT, that means 120. Out of 120, £50 in the check, rest is cash. So 50 is the bank, money came to bank, 70 is the cash. The next one is says 100 including VAT. So you have to divide by 6. So VAT is 16. So if I minus the VAT from 100, so 83. So 100 minus 16, 100 minus 16, let's say 83. It will be point something, but we're ignoring just to understanding the question. 83 is the net. Full amount paid in the cash. So every whole money, £100 all, came as a cash. So we said, all right, now we're recording all this transaction on the cash book debit side. If we receive the money, it is cash book debit side. If we make a payment, that's cash book credit side. So we recorded for the X limited 100 plus VAT. So total is 120, but 50 cash. So 50 is check, sorry. So C50 will come to the bank and 70 will come to the cash. That's the total. Now VAT is 20 that we already calculated, and net will be 100. So what we understand from here, we receive total 70 plus 50, that is 120, and out of 120, 100 is for us, that is the net, and 20 is for the HMRC, isn't it? That's the VAT. On the other hand, the Y limited, so all amount received in cash. So you're going to write £100 cash here, and nothing came to the bank. VAT is 16, and 83 is the net. So we understand we receive £100 from the customer, including VAT. So we keep 83 for us, and 16 will give it to HMRC. So the main understanding point here is, if the transaction happened today, if it is a cash transaction, then you have to split the VAT and need to give it to HMRC because we never gave before. If it is a credit transaction, if it has happened before, we don't have to split the VAT because this VAT is already paid before. If I do it again, then it will be double. After that, all you need to do, you need to add the total 170, 550, because we already have some opening balance. Make sure you add the opening balance, the VAT, that is 36, and that is 183. That's the debit side of the cash book. If the question said on the credit side, the cash book have £100, for example, let's say credit side of the cash book, not the debit, credit side of the cash book is 100. How much is the balance? Remember, the cash book balance is always debit side minus the credit side. So if we have a debit side 170, and if the credit side is 100, so the balance will be 70. That means we have £170 and we paid £100. The left is 70, exactly like bank. So if they said how much money you have on the bank, so credit side, let's say 500. So 500, so 550 minus 500, so 50 will be left on the bank. And remember one more thing, the bank could go to minus as well. If you see the bank could go to the minus because bank can go to the overdraft. We can use more than we have. But the cash book cannot be go to the minus. For example, on the cash, if we have 170, we can maximum spend up to 170. We cannot use more than that. But on the bank, if we have 550, we can spend up to 1000 because we can go to the overdraft. So the cash balance, the cash column can go up to minus, but the bank column can go to up to the minus sign as well, the overdraft. But the cash cannot go to the minus. Cash can go up to the zero, not the minus. All right, so I have to understand the cash book because this question is always tested in the exam. So make sure you do enough revision for the cash book, and hopefully after that you will be more confident for this cash book. Normally 10 to 15 marks will come from the cash book in the exam. Thank you.